Every parent envisions their child's success in school, the pursuit of a scholarship, and the transition to college life. For some, the pressure associated with this dream can become overwhelmingly burdensome. However, few could fathom that such pressure could escalate to a tragic incident involving the P.O. family. What began as a hopeful aspiration for college transformed into a harrowing nightmare when a single phone call unveiled the hidden secrets of their daughter. This revelation shattered their tranquil family abode and gave rise to a horrifying sequence of deceit, violence, and a murder witnessed over the phone. This is the heart-wrenching tale of Brenda Powell's untimely demise. Brenda K. Powell had lived a serene life in the idyllic city of Akan, Ohio, ever since her teenage years. Following her graduation from the University of Akan, she devoted 28 years of her life as a chilled life specialist in the hematology-oncology unit at the local children's hospital. Her obituary celebrated her unwavering dedication to the families she worked with and her own kin. Brenda also pioneered the hospital's teen oncology program and always made time for her husband and children. This devoted wife and mother's life was destined to be tragically cut short, not by an external threat, but by her own daughter, Sydney Powell. Brenda's teenage daughter, Sydney, had been a remarkable student during her time at St. Vincent St. Mary High School in Akan. She excelled academically, participated in soccer and a year of lacrosse, maintained impressive grades, and boasted a high-grade point average. Her parents, Brenda and Steve, beamed with pride when it was time for Sydney to embark on her college journey. Together, they selected Mount Union University due to its intimate campus and proximity to their home. The Alliance, Ohio campus was just an hour away, and Sydney secured a presidential scholarship, which eased the financial burden of private education. She commenced her college journey in the fall of 2018, returned home for breaks, and remained in close contact with her mother. The bond between Sydney and Brenda was exceptionally strong, evident to everyone around them. Brenda was not just Sydney's mother, but also her best friend. The family enjoyed a profound trust in one another, and even used the Life 360 app to track each other's whereabouts, strengthening their sense of security. Despite these signs of a tight-knit family, what would lead to their unity's unraveling? Sydney had a track record of achievement, excelling in high school and earning a prestigious scholarship. Her parents had no reason to doubt her academic performance. Mount Union University offered an app that allowed them to monitor Sydney's progress, but they chose not to use it frequently, respecting her privacy. Sydney remained tight-lipped about her academic struggles, not even disclosing them when she returned home during the summer of 2019. That year, she secured a summer job with the Akan Rubber Ducks, the local baseball team, working in the kid zone. She headed back to campus in the fall, still not sharing her academic difficulties. During the winter break, she returned home to celebrate a warm and joyous Christmas and New Year's with her family in Akan, seemingly as if nothing had gone awry. However, in January 2020, when she went back to Mount Union, a problem had emerged. In December 2019, Sydney had been unenrolled for the fall semester due to her failure in 3 out of her 4 classes. Consequently, she received a written notice of expulsion, a document that would eventually unravel the secrets hidden within her life.
Yes.
Okay, what is that document?
This would be the letter indicating that Sydney was suspended.
Okay, so that's a suspension letter. That's a letter that's sent to students?
Yes.
Okay. And that directs them on who to contact if they want to appeal or to address what's going on?
Yes.
Okay. And Ms. Gaffney, who is that letter specifically to?
This is to Sydney.
Now, you mentioned that this letter of suspension is sent via certified mail. Is there a tracking system that Mount Union uses to ensure that that student has proper notice? Is there a signature?
There is a signature required.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that once a student is suspended, they wouldn't be allowed back into the dorms. Can you explain the process of who's allowed in the dorms and who's allowed to use Mount Union's facilities as a student?
So to live on campus, you have to be enrolled as a full-time student.
And part of that suspension, that student will lose access to all of those availabilities.
Yes.
Okay.
However, in January, she returned to Mount Union and persisted in upholding the facade of normalcy, even with her roommate, Lauren Curry, her high school best friend. It wasn't until late February that Sydney confided in Lauren about her impending departure to take some time to sort things out. In truth, Sydney had been required to leave after a personal meeting with college administrators who informed her that she had to vacate her dorm and her key card access would be terminated.
Ms. Gaffney, at some point did you yourself meet Sydney Powell?
I did.
Okay. And what happened? Were you able to contact Ms. Powell?
I was. And
Okay.
Sydney came over to the office.
Okay, can you describe that interaction?
I think when she first came in, I said, Sydney, there seems to be some confusion. It seems as though you haven't moved out of your residence hall yet, from what I can tell. But you're not enrolled this semester. You're not a student here this semester. And at first she replied to me that, oh, I am, but I'm still a student here. And that's when I actually addressed the fact that the suspension, I said, Sydney, you received a suspension letter that you signed for. And so we spoke a little bit further, and she said, well, yes, she had, but she had been hoping to get things changed or fixed, and so she had been trying to work things out.
Any information that something might be going on with Sydney in Mount Union?
The only thing that I knew is when I tried to sign on to the, like their whatever app that they have on the website, it kept kicking me out.
Why were you trying to get into that portal?
Seeing, because the 529 plan didn't cover all the tuition for the year, so I had to make a personal check.
Okay.
So I had to see how much that was.
Okay. And when you had difficulty logging onto that portal, what did you do?
I asked Sydney what was going on about it.
Okay, and what did she say?
There was a mistake with Mount Union,
Okay.
and she'd look into it.
Okay, and at that point you had no reason not to trust what
Correct.
she's telling you?
Correct.
Steve had every reason to believe her. She had consistently proven to be a trustworthy child with a track record of academic success. Little did anyone anticipate what would unfold next. On March 3, 2020, Steve received a call at work from Mount Union officials, urgently requesting to speak with him. They disclosed that Sydney was no longer enrolled at the college. When he inquired about the duration of this situation, all they offered was a cryptic response. You'd have to ask her.
I believe Mount Union called me. They called me, and the conversation was that Sydney wasn't enrolled anymore. And then I asked for how long, and they said, you have to ask her.
Okay. And I'm sure that came as a shock to you?
Yes.
And again, they said you have to ask, I know it sounds cold, but they're saying you have to ask her because they can't give you any more information, right?
That was my assumption.
What prompted you to go home, to leave work and go home?
Because I saw on the app she was home, which I thought was a little bit early.
Okay.
The 360 life.
The 360 app showed that she was home.
Yes.
If someone on that app comes home, do you get like a little buzz or notification on your phone?
If it's set up, you can.
Okay. So did you just happen to see that on the 360 app, or did it give you like a
I
notification?
might have got a notification. I don't recall.
Okay. So you get a notification that Sydney's at home, correct?
Yes.
When you see that, you go home.
Correct.
All right. And why did you go home?
See why she was home.
Okay. Did you have any concern for her at that time?
Just because Mount Union said she wasn't enrolled, but no, I was just going to go home and see why she was home so early. And
Okay. And did you take your phone with you when you went home?
no.
The confrontation unfolded around 11:30, and upon arriving, he discovered her alone at home. Sydney explained that she was facing some challenges at college, but assured him that she was still enrolled and attending certain classes with her friend and roommate, Lauren. Steve responded with understanding, assuring her that they would navigate through the semester together. He also expressed openness to the idea of her taking a break during the summer. emphasizing their commitment to working through the situation.
I don't want to put words in your mouth. You tell me. What did she say?
She was, again, I don't remember the details, but I remember she said she was still going to some of her classes with her friend Lauren.
You remember telling her that, you can't run away from your problems, you have to face them.
I said we'd go through, let's get through this semester, and if you needed to take the summer off or we would work through it. I remember she said, all her friends have their shit together and she doesn't, and I told her, no, that's not true.
She said she didn't. Sydney said, I don't have my shit together, but my friends do.
Yeah, she didn't know what she wanted to do, it sounded like.
Sure.
But he dialed, the phone was answered, and Mrs. Powell answered.
You say Mrs. Powell, is that Brenda who answered?
Brenda answered, yes.
Okay. And what did you tell Brenda at that time?
So Dean Fraser was speaking and simply said, Brenda, this is Dean Fraser. I'm sitting here with Michelle Gaffney, our associate dean of students. We're returning your call, and that's about as far as we got. Did
Brenda respond to that introduction at all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
What did she say?
I think he asked, "Is this Brenda Powell?"
Oh, okay.
And she said yes, and then he identified himself.
Okay. And Miss Gaffney, what happened next?
There was a very large or a very loud sort of thud sound, like a pounding or a thud, accompanied by a pretty loud scream, and the scream might have actually been first, and then the thud.
Okay.
As I think about it, and then there was sort of an expulsion. The other sound that I heard at that same time, or right after, was sort of an expulsion of air, like the air was knocked out of somebody.
Okay.
I'd always heard that expression of the air being knocked, having the wind knocked out of you, but I didn't. That's actually what it sounded like. And then several more repeated thuds. I don't know how to describe the sound.
No, and that's okay. And you and Mr. Fraser could hear this from the other end of the phone.
It was on speakerphone, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you hear any communication during these thuds?
Just the screaming, and so we were both talking into the phone, saying, what's happening? Are you okay? Do you need help? What's going on?
Yeah, can you describe your mindset at this time? Ms. Gaffney, did you recognize that voice on the line?
Yeah.
Okay, was that Brenda Powell?
It was not Brenda.
Who did you recognize that voice to be?
I was sure it was Sydney. Both Dean Fraser and I looked at each other and sort of shook our heads at each other and said, that's not Brenda. And he then said, Sydney, I think this is you. This is not Brenda.
And what happened next?
The phone went dead.
Okay. And Ms. Gaffney, what did you do next?
We called the Akron police. By that point, I had the phone number up and the address, and so we called the Akron police and indicated we felt there was some sort of situation at this house, and that they needed to send someone right away.
They were on the phone, and there was a lot of screaming going on, so he couldn't really say if it was like a physical fight, but just heard like a lot of yelling and screaming going on. And then he tried calling back twice, and there was no callback.
Is there anything you want to say to me at this time? All right. Thank you very much. First of all, to the victims, to the family and friends, I am terribly sorry for your loss here. I cannot imagine what you have been through. I have received and read all of the letters that have been sent to me. I have considered the evidence that was brought into evidence at the trial, the statements of counsel, and all of the information that is before me at this time. Based upon the facts and circumstances of this case and in consideration of the relevant sentencing factors, including seriousness and recidivism, and applying the minimum sanction that the court has determined will protect the public and punish the offender without imposing an unnecessary burden on state and local resources, the court imposes the following sentence. On count 1, ma'am, I sentence you to an indefinite sentence of 15 years to life in the Ohio Department of Corrections. On count 4 of the indictment, I sentence you to 3 years in the Ohio Department of Corrections. Those two sentences to be run concurrent with and not consecutive to each other. Ma'am, understand that you have a right to appeal this decision, and that notice of appeal must be filed within 30 days of the sentencing judgment entry. Your attorney has indicated to me that you are without funds to hire an attorney to represent you for appeal. Is that correct? And you wish for me to appoint counsel to represent you? Yes. All right. I will do that, and we will try and get that done before you leave the Summit County Jail. Ma'am, I will not fine you. I will not assess you court costs in this matter. Good luck to you, Ms. Powell. Thank you. We're adjourned.